On the face of it, today's New South Wales numbers were hopeful.
There were 60,184 tests were reported to 8 p.m. last night. We have about 300 testing locations across the state, 9 new locally acquired cases of COVID. Of these, 7 are linked to the Avalon cluster, which now numbers 104.
But while officials celebrated the high test numbers and low positive cases, there were real concerns over a potential transmission train that remained undetected.
We are concerned about people who may have been infectious, who went to work in the CBD and then have passed that on to other people in the CBD, and those people have then passed it on back in their communities.
With undetected cases a real possibility, the Premier stopped short of additional Christmas restrictions but pleaded with Sydney-siders to limit travel, socially distance, wear masks and sanitise.
We need everybody to be extra COVID safe over the next few days. Don't let the celebrations or the Christmas activities reduce the necessary nature in which we have to be on guard.
Following the news a Qantas crew member tested positive, a warning has been issued to all those who travelled on flight QF841.
All the people who were on the flight from Darwin to Sydney are now considered close contacts and will be immediately tested and asked to self-isolate for 14 days.
With that 14 days encompassing both Christmas and New Year's, the holidays are set to look very different in Sydney, with the exception of New Year's Eve. The Premier confirming the fireworks display will go ahead as usual, one familiar sight after a year of wild unpredictability.
Professor Mary Louise McLaws is an epidemiologist who's part of the World Health Organisation's COVID-19 response panel, and she joins us once more. Mary Louise, the Premier sounds really pleased with the testing numbers. They are huge numbers by any measure, but she's also worried about that possible CBD spread. How concerned are you about that?
It's very concerning, Waleed. It is just 8 days that we've gone from 3 cases to 104. And the last time we were at this level, it took us over 2 months to get back to zero. So it's going to take a bit longer between now and New Year's Eve to actually get this back to a really safe place of zero.
Contact tracing here in New South Wales is brilliant and they have done such an amazing job, but they're still investigating the source of 6 cases. Are you concerned that this points to a second cluster?
There's the likelihood of a second cluster given the period between the first case and this latest cluster. So there is a possibility that it's gone to what we call second generation or of contacts of the original group. So yes, it is concerning because then it's more difficult to find their contacts as well.
Mary Louise, are you anticipating increased numbers of people testing positive because of Christmas gatherings?
Absolutely. Christmas is, like New Year's Eve, is an accelerant because people get together, they hug and they laugh and they let their guard down. So it will be potentially an accelerant, but it's up to us to be very careful to look after ourselves and our elderly members of the family, to remember to really keep safe and keep your family at home rather than a whole bunch of friends.
What then do you think of the New South Wales government's decision to press ahead with New Year's Eve?
It's very disappointing because I think what is happening here is the authorities are trying to please the people, but not do complete outbreak management, and neither win. I mean, you know, if you're trying to balance both, neither will win. So really, at this stage with 104 cases, Waleed, you really do need to just let the outbreak managers do their job. And also, you know, Sydney-siders are very resilient, and we've seen what Victorians went through, and they went through a lockdown for 114 days. So if they can do it, we can do it for a few days. So I think we Sydney-siders need to show that we are fully resilient and that we will keep just our family close to us over these next few days to stop any accelerant.
But Mary Louise, Victoria got it down to zero because, well, one of the main reasons was that they mandated mask wearing, and the New South Wales Premier refuses to mandate mask wearing in public. Is that a mistake?
Yes, it is a mistake. I mean, the evidence that masks are very, very effective if everybody wears them is being ignored. The other thing is that it sends a message that says you can make a choice. And instead, the authorities could actually be handing out masks and saying they're mandatory. They don't have to get the mask police out to issue fines, to make Sydney-siders realise that this is really important and you don't have a choice.
Mary Louise, not so much with the masks issue, but more in terms of the lockdowns, various different forms of lockdowns around the state. You've got a situation where New South Wales is essentially trying to balance people's needs, mental health needs, to be with their family, plus virus control. And I'm wondering, from your vantage point, how should we be balancing those things? Has the New South Wales government got the balance right over the next couple of days?
When you're dealing with a really serious disease like this, that, 98% of cases who died were the elderly, were 60 and over. So really, you don't have a choice. You have to manage the outbreak. And then you need to let people manage mental health and well-being. But the outbreak managers need to do their job, and that is ask us all to only see our family, ask us all to wear a mask, and do what outbreak managers do best, and that is handle the virus, because the virus has no clue about religious holidays. It really actually quite like social gatherings and religious holidays. And don't forget, we asked our Muslim Australian community to be very restrictive during Eid, and they were. So, they coped very well. And the rest of Sydney can cope well over this period. We just need to be told this is important and we need to get back to zero, and they will.
I remember that point you make about Eid very well, Mary Louise. Thank you very much for speaking to us. I appreciate it.
Stay well. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
I love Mary Louise McLaws. I'm sorry that I interrupted her just then. She's brilliant and wonderful.
With so much content online, it's sometimes hard to keep up with it all. And let's face it, who has the time? The Project YouTube has you covered with the stories that matter. Hit subscribe for a daily list of the news that you need to know.